Hello, good evening, good afternoon to my people out there in the world. How y'all doing? Welcome back to Faith Talk episode 5. It's your hostess with the mostest, Erica. And we're going to talk about how love and faith meet in these dating streets. But first, we're going to start with the word of prayer.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this day. Thank you for loving us so much that you thought far ahead and gave us a day that we can rest and that we can think about you and things that pertain to you. As we're having this episode today, I pray that your spirit will speak to each of us and each person hearing because you desire godly offspring. You want families that are strong and that are healthy. Be with us and guide us today in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, welcome again. So today I have the Browns with me. Whoop, whoop.
Hello.
So we have Teresa and we have Jeremiah, but y'all just T and J today, okay? Because we're doing all that. All right, so welcome and reintroduce yourself to the people. How old are you? What do you do for a living? Where are you from?
Okay. So originally, hi, my name is Teresa Brown. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, but I've been living in Orlando for about 10 years now. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida, previously an educator. And what was it? Oh, I am 34.
Well, I'm Jeremiah Brown. I'm originally from Mississippi. I've been living in Florida for about 6, 7 years, give or take. I finished. I'm a registered nurse, um, and I am 38. I had to remember.
All right. So y'all ain't no spring chickens, but y'all somewhat of babies.
Hey.
Still, a little bit.
I'm still
Depends
young.
depending on who says.
I'm still early 30s.
Early 30s. Okay.
No, I'm resting.
Well, I'm right there with you because I'm about a year older than you. So I guess we rusty together. Well, let's get right into it. So, what is your testimony? How did you become to know the saving grace of Jesus Christ?
Oh, well, that one. Well, I grew up in the church. I kind of like moved around with where I went, but when I went to college, I found myself not really going anywhere because it's like now you're an adult and you're trying to figure yourself out.
Mhm.
So you're trying to figure out, well, where do I want to go? I grew up Catholic. A lot of people don't know that.
Really?
So a lot of people are like, you went to Oakwood. I didn't know what Oakwood was until 2010. Don't judge me. So when I went to college, I found like a group of women that they seemed like they really knew who God was and they really understood the message. And I wanted a connection. And one of the women in the group, I really looked up to her and I was hanging out with her and she was like, oh, just come to my church. And so she invited me to her church, Mount Pisgah. Shout out to Mount Pisgah in Miami. And I just was like, wow, this is amazing. Like being able to truly spend just time with God and not just like fit him into a schedule, like a busy schedule. And I decided to become a part of the church. I always had Christians in my family. Like, again, I grew up in the church and I always had Adventists in my family, but being able to find God for myself, that didn't happen until like 2010.
That's interesting. So you went from Catholicism to Adventism
Mm-hmm.
in 2010, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. What about you, Jay?
I did not grow up in church whatsoever. I got into church later when I was like 18 or 19 when I met a good friend of mine. He was non-denominational. And then I joined his church after knowing him for about a year or two. I stayed in church. I became a minister there until about my
Didn't know
late
that.
20s. Then I left and I moved because, my mom was in the military and everything. So moving was something I was just used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, I've been here long enough. And then eventually I ended up moving to Florida. And then when I met Teresa, she introduced me to um, Adventism. And I was like, okay, church on Saturday, huh?
That's kind of how I was at
I
first,
was
too. I'm
like,
right there with you, bro.
mean my one free day? All right, well, let me go see what it's about.
Right.
And so then I came, and I was like, oh, wow, it's actually a community, which is what drew me was that it's community, it's real, it's honest. There's some structure. It felt home.
Mm.
So it felt like home. And I was like, okay, this will work, Lord. Okay. And then um, since then getting baptized here and actually being able to be an active member, it's been great. So
That's awesome. So this is your first Adventist church?
yes.
Wow. We have similar experiences, but this isn't about me. So we're going to just keep it to you guys. But that's very interesting. I was like that too. That culture shock is real because
Yes,
you're
it's
used to
real.
getting up cleaning on Saturday. Don't y'all judge us, okay? And just like trying to adjust to doing all of that on Sunday and you got to go to work the next day is tough at first, but that's interesting. So do you think, Teresa, that being from a family that had mixed denominations, you were more receptive to being with someone who didn't really have the same background as you at first?
I don't think I really thought about that. I remember when, in my singleness, because we've been married almost 4 years now. So I my singlehood wasn't that far away. So I remember the days where people are trying to tell you, this is what you need to look for and this is who you need to get. And I remember there were some people that told me, you need to make sure he's Adventist. Like that was it. Like if he's not Adventist, it's a no. And I remember, saying to myself, man, I felt like I was going to be in a smaller bubble. Because especially being a Christian woman, you already kind of feel like you boxed in because either guys don't take you seriously because they're like, oh, you're a Christian girl. Let me see if I could change that.
Yes.
Or, it just becomes some type of weapon. And so I already felt like I was in a box. Then when I became Adventist, I felt like I was even in a smaller box. So I'm like, okay, well, if I can only look at the Adventist church, man, how long is it going to take me?
Come on.
That's what I thought. And so I remember having a specific prayer. I was like, Lord, please send me somebody who loves you, but who is not tied to any church. Because I know he'll just come to mind.
That was smart. Y'all hear that, ladies? Stop only praying for Adventist men.
That was my specific prayer. When I met him, I remember saying, oh, because at the end of that, I still didn't want to be, unequally yoked. I didn't want to be in one of those households where it's like, oh, mommy goes to church on Saturday and daddy goes to church on Sunday. So now where do we send the kids? I didn't want that in my future. Right. So I remember having a conversation with him where I was like, I don't think it's going to work because I'm not in the ministry of converting people. Like that's your own personal relationship. Yes. So I remember having the conversation with him and I was like, yeah, I don't think it's going to work because, at the end of it, you're not Adventist. And he was like, you read the Bible, right? You believe in God, right? Okay, we could go to church on Saturday. And I was like, thank you, God.
Jesus was not Adventist. That's exactly what came to mind. I'm gonna get in trouble. Don't shut us down. I'm just saying. So how was that though? So actually I have the privilege of having had a good conversation with you all prior to now. So I know more than the rest of the world. I keep forgetting that. So let me just try to make sure I give a little bit of background. So you guys had a very interesting way of meeting. Want to share that with us, Jay?
Well, yes, we met online. We met on Bumble. I was in Jacksonville at the time. I don't know, no offense to Jacksonville. It's a nice place. It's very family oriented. It's also kind of hood.
Very hood. So I was waiting on it.
So it was just like, I was like, wow, this is real hood. Like, ooh, how you find a wife in all this hood? So I was like, all right, well, let me try these apps. And so I got on Bumble and I was like, okay, all right. It's swipe left, swipe right situation. I was like, okay, Lord. So I had a specific prayer. I was like, okay, well, Lord, whoever you bless me with, may she be rooted in her church and saved for real.
Wow.
And have a community. If she can just have those things, I'm good because I'm not going to do the social work. I knew that. Yeah. Like whoever I got with had to be way more social than me because I was like, I'm not going to talk all day. I'm just not going to do it.
What? You're not social?
I'm social, but not like my lovely wife. Y'all see her every Sabbath, though. So when I met Teresa online, at first it was just phone calls and FaceTime, that type of situation. And then we started meeting. I came up here one weekend to actually see and spend some time with her and see was she a real person. Because you got to check, y'all, real people. You gotta make sure
that is
people.
important because you will be catfished in real life.
And so I was like, okay, wow. So it went good. The first weekend it went good, and then we just kept talking some more. And then it made it to the place where I'm like, okay, I know she's not gonna move, but so I'll move. And then I moved up here because I was like, but I wasn't finna move with no money. I'm not that type of man. So I'm like, Lord, vision makes provision. So I went and I put in some applications. I got 2 phone calls back, and I came up and got 2 jobs and been here ever since.
So you've been here for 6 years. So that means you would have moved here in what, 2018?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you said you started going to the church that you were your friend's church in 2010, right?
Oh no, that was years. That was 2000.
Early on. Okay, we ain't gonna go down memory lane, but I was just thinking about the fact that you had the mindset to pray for someone who is rooted. Like that's an old saint term.
Yeah,
Lord,
I'm old
I like how you say Lord. By the way, Lord, let them be rooted. You know, like that was very wise of you. So that was your mindset going into dating online, was to find a wife. What about yours, Teresa? What was your mindset?
So I was one of those. Back when I was single, I would have what I called like the routine, where because I got on apps like on and off for years, but I would get on an app super hopeful, and then after meeting not so great people, you become distraught. Yep. And then you're like, man, forget it. This is not how I even wanted to meet somebody anyway.
Right.
So I would delete the app, and then by December, you know, it's about to be a new year, and you're like, Lord, I need to come in the new year with a new man. Like, come on. So I would download the app again, and just like a gym membership, by March I stopped using it, and then it was just a cycle.
Stuff, right?
It was just a cycle. And
so what was different about this time?
So this time when I got on, it's funny because by the time we met, I was getting ready to get off again, because I'm like, okay, no, this is just not for me. And when I met him, it was the conversation for me. Like in one of our books, I said you had me at hello, because the conversation with him was just so deep. Like I would say something and he would have a response to it, not just, okay, cool, that's what's up. Like that's what I kept getting from a lot of guys. It's like you pour your heart out, you answer their question, and they were like, that's what's up. I need you to have a little bit more to say to that. That's not what's up. Right. So he actually like reflected on what I was saying. He would, look at how I was feeling. It was to the point where I was like, who is telling him my business? Like his discernment was just so on point. Like, God was telling him my business. And the conversation that I had with him, I was like, okay, this is somebody that, I could shoot my shot. So I sent him my number. I was like, hey, you want to talk? Like,
oh, that's interesting.
Yes, I did. He left that part out. But no, yes.
Okay. That's awesome. I had to make sure my mic was on. I couldn't hear myself. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't know that to you. So you shot your shot.
Yes. And then I did one thing I will admit, which I no longer am ashamed or anything like that. He is my first boyfriend. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean? Like, he did not believe me.
With the stories that you gave, I can understand why.
Right. Like he didn't believe me, but he really was my first relationship. So I was all over the place because I didn't know what I was doing. Because, when you're younger, you can have all these boyfriends and do the immature stuff and figure things out about yourself. And then by the time you get to a certain age, then you're supposed to know yourself more. But then at 29, and I haven't had that experience, I said, Lord, whoever I get with, I feel sorry for him because he's going to have to go through all of my craziness because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, that's a very honest. I love that though. You got to be real with God. He says to come to him earnestly. So you have to in order to really get your prayers answered. But now I'm very curious about your perspective of that. So like you were on the other end of it. She's 29. You are I think I'm 30. 34. Okay. And so how was that? I mean, because obviously you're already serious about looking for a wife, and then you get this girl, excuse me for all intents of this conversation, who's just starting out dating, and it's like, what are you well, let me not speak for you, but I guess I would imagine you probably were like, what are you doing? Like
I was taken back a little bit at first initially, because I was like, because we would have discussions, and there were sometimes we would have disagreements, and she would get teary-eyed, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, are you crying? Like I would be like, I would get upset because I was like, yo, you can't do that. What I'm supposed to do now that you're crying? Because I wasn't used to someone who got sad at a disagreement. I was like, oh, you really, oh, you were telling the truth. So it was a mix. It was like, oh wow, this is okay. This is a first for a lot of things for me and for her because it was like I knew the world, and I knew worldly women in a way, but somebody righteous is like, oh, okay. Oh, all right. So I really have to be careful. I really have to be mindful. I handle you. Oh, I gotta pray more. I gotta pray a lot more. Okay, God, how do I do this? And how do I do this with your daughter? Which was one of the things that I, viewed her like, okay, she is his daughter, and he is my father, so he has to have instructions on what to do with her.
That's good.
So I'm
revelation.
like, I'm
Very
going to be
good.
mindful of what I do and say because some things, especially as a man, we can take criticism and not take it personal, or we can be a beast of burden to a certain degree. So people can be rougher with us with words versus someone as gentle, especially as my wife, someone as gentle as her. I'm like, oh, that's gonna stay with her for about 3-4 months. I mean, she gonna she gonna nurture that now. So that was one of the on my end, that was one of the things that I had to learn. And then I, enjoyed the journey to actually be like, okay, well, this is new for both of us. This is something that, neither one of us, I never been with just a true godly woman before. So, and at the same time, I'm her first boyfriend. So it's like, okay, well, I have to believe what she's saying. And so when you getting to know someone, sometimes there's a doubt in your mind, like, are they telling the truth? But I'm like, okay, she is just being completely honest. And so having to take her at her word and just go with
That's good. Very good revelation. The Lord was helping you indeed. Thank you, audience. um, so I can kind of relate to you, Teresa, because I tried that online dating thing one good time, and I was like, "This is not for me." I am a conversationalist, if you could imagine. So trying to text and drag out a 30-minute conversation for days, it was just too painstaking. And I'm like, I'm too beautiful to be on here. Like, I'm not desperate. What are we doing? Like, what is happening?
And that's one of the what's the word I'm looking for? No, that's one of the things I want to change, like the perceptions I want to change about online dating. Because I will say, I have had two friends who have met and married their husbands off of Bumble. Bumble should be paying us, but I'll just
Come on,
we're
Bumble,
two
with
for
the
two.
sponsorship.
We are 2
Yes.
for 2. We tried to get them to pay for the wedding, but they sent us gifts instead.
Oh.
So we took the gifts. We took the gifts. So I'm not saying, we're not saying that we have the answer. I feel like everything that is available to us is just an opportunity for us to meet that
Yes,
person.
absolutely.
Because had it not, because we still feel wholeheartedly that God put us together.
Amen. Yeah.
Because I got to a place where I was like, you start off with your radius being your area. Like, so I was like the 30 miles. Then after a while, I was like, I just put it to 100. I said, Lord, as long as he's somewhere in Florida, I'll drive. Like, that's where I'm at. Because he was living in Jacksonville. Had I not done that, he wouldn't have popped up for me. Like,
absolutely.
So it's just about
Make
an
it
opportunity to meet somebody.
Yes.
I don't care how you meet them, as long as you meet, as long as you meet them.
Well, for the intents and purposes of this not podcast yet. Okay, Lord. For this broadcast, we pray that you guys meet them in a godly way.
Yes, yes. Yes. Amen. Thank you for that. And so we still have this mentality that to go online is desperate, is
that was
because in my mind I'm thinking we shop online, we go to church online, we see the doctor online, we do makeup tutorials online, we do school online, but you can't meet somebody online. Like, I mean, does it really matter?
You know what it is? It's the age difference. I'm a bit older than you. You're young. You're obviously younger than me, but you are the age of one of my sisters, and I see her when you're talking, and I'm like, you know what? That's good. But I like that because you're able to teach us. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yes.
And actually, it was a coworker of mine who is 25 that suggested that I get online. And just because I had that one little bad experience, I got off. But I did keep it in the back of my mind. I said, if I don't meet anybody, then I'll go back on there. Maybe that platform wasn't the right one.
Yeah.
But at first, that was my true, honest, raw feelings. Like, I'm too beautiful for this. These guys, and I think more so it was the fact that I didn't really know how to deal with rejection that well from strangers. Like I could be rejected from someone that I had. Oh, they're not in here. But yeah, I could be rejected from people that I know, but it's just like, well, you haven't even given me a chance, So I think maybe that's why a lot of people are afraid of online.
And the other thing with online rejection, especially from a man's perspective, you're going to get accepted or rejected quickly.
Yeah.
And so I think men, we can handle rejection a little bit better.
Yes.
We're used to being rejected. Like, oh, you don't get away from me, dusty, brokey, ugly. Like, so you grow up trying to holler at girls and be like, hey, how you doing? Beautiful, beautiful. You ain't, because women gonna let you know from the door.
Yeah.
Like I feel disrespected that you are trying to talk to me.
Yes.
So online for men is like, oh, I get to get this rejection and I don't have to hear you reject me. Oh, it's a blessing. Now for women,
so they're trying to beat us to the punch. They're trying to reject us first. Oh, that's what that was.
No,
okay. Because I know I was out of a few of their leads now.
I'm telling you, the benefit, the pros and cons is that the benefit is you're gonna know who like you quick. The con is like how much time is it going to take to go from a talking to a tangible relationship?
I think it's a numbers game too. Because online it's like shopping, like you said, right? So you have all of this merchandise to choose from, and guys have way more options online. And I think deep down maybe that was my real reason for feeling like you had to be desperate, because I'm like, the odds are against me online. Like, why would I go on there and put myself at in a bad scenario?
But it's against us everywhere, isn't it? Like, I mean, the odds are always against us. Like, there's always more women in a group than men.
But in person, you get to really see me. You get to interact with me. You get to know my personality, even the goofiness and the awkwardness and all of that. But online, you don't really get to see that. All you see is my picture, and then I got to advertise myself a certain way just for you to like me. And the same goes for men and women, right? But I think, like you said, men are more equipped because they've experienced that in real life. Whereas with most women, beautiful women, intelligent women, most of us black women, we got it going on. A lot of y'all white ones too, and others, not to exclude y'all, but most of us, we have it going on. So it's like, we're not used to that. So the idea of having to put ourselves in the marketplace to then be rejected is just a turn off to a lot of people. How did you guys?
I look at it like a long game. I had to get to a place, because like I said, from the time I started going online, that on and off, it had been years. So when people look at us, they're like, man, Teresa found a man quick.
A good man
quick.
A man God had for you.
But for Teresa, it's like, this took me almost a decade. Like, what do you mean quick? Like,
see, I didn't have it in me, Teresa.
I was supposed to be married at 24, not 20, not 31. Like,
you had a whole plan. You had a whole timeline. Wow.
And so I tell people, when it comes online, what else are you doing? Like, I understand the rejection, but you're not losing anything still being on it. So again, God is still going to have his way, because whoever is for you, you're going to find them.
Amen.
Even if it's in the sea of men online.
I received that. Amen. I received that. Y'all received that too. Yes. Thank you. So that brings me to my next question. What was on your list? I want to know from both of you all. Or did you have a list? First of all, wait, let me back up a little bit. Do you believe in the 70-30 rule? Do both of you believe in the 70-30 rule?
Explain the rule. Yeah, explain.
It's kind of like the 80-20, but it's more so for those seeking than those in. So the 80-20 more so applies to if you're in a relationship and you're thinking about exiting the relationship. Compare what you have to what you're looking for, what you think you want. But the 70-30 is more so for someone who is looking to be in a relationship, and you have your list, right? And you're saying, does this person match up to my list by 70%? And they just have the 30 or not. And that's how you determine if that's a person that's compatible for you. So what do you think?
Well, I'm a I'm a man, so I'm like 60-40 is workable too. And the reason I say that is because whoever you get with, there's going to be a lot of teaching. There's going to be a lot of teaching with your mate. So they may start out having 70-30, then you married for 2 years and you be like, you got 20-80. You know, year one, you got 20-80. Then year two, you be like, it's 40-60, and then you carry on.
Right.
And so I kind of, when it comes to those ratios, it's more so, do they have the core character,
Values. Okay.
core character, core principles? Because those things aren't going to change.
Mm-hmm.
The way they are expressed may change through the years, but who they are is not going to change.
Yeah.
And so, like, well, for me, it was just I needed somebody who would not lie, because I hate liars. And if I think you lying, you lied.
Dang,
So-
that's tough.
So please tell me the truth, because I'm gonna keep asking. I needed someone who was good at the word. I needed someone who, who wanted to work but not slave. I want you to have your own drive, your own thing that I don't, I'm not gonna force you to do anything. Caring, and would allow me to be all of me. I didn't. When I first started talking to Teresa, I was very used to being more of a product than a person, as far as when a man with a woman, and this is what I mean. Like most men are, most men believe in being productive, which in essence we take upon the product type of behavior. As long as I perform, then you should be okay. So how I am as a person really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm happy or sad. It matters if I got money for bills. It doesn't matter about my mental, state, as long as I can perform in the areas you want me to. So when I got with Teresa, I was like, hey, listen, I'm more of a product than a person. So if you could kind of just tell me what you want, that'll work out great. And Teresa was like, that sounds crazy.
And it quite naturally, now with her being a mental health
Yeah.
therapist, I'm pretty sure somewhere in there before she even became a mental health therapist was how she thinks, right?
Yeah.
And so she's like, a product. I need to know how you feeling. Like, what's happening?
But for a dude, trust me, that's something that's not allowed in the majority of your interaction or relationships or work. It really isn't. So that, to me, I was like, wow, okay. And so then that became one of my staples. I'm like, well, even if we don't work out, I'm keeping that one. So we those were mine, those core products, and she had them. She had those core characters, and I was like, okay, well, everything else we can work with.
I'm going to come back to that. But Teresa, what about you? What's your list?
So I kind of like list in essence of like the actual, like, these are all the things that I want. As I got older and got more tired, that list was like not really there. I knew what my values were, and I knew what I found unattractive in a guy, because I had a lot of friends that were already married. Like, I was one of the only ones in a lot of my friend groups that wasn't married. So by the time I got married, all my friends were like, oh my gosh, we didn't, we're not even used to you having a boyfriend. You were always available, and now you're married. Oh my goodness, what's going on? So I saw a lot of things, and I knew what things I liked and what things I didn't like. I knew what was important to me. So for me, someone who was God-fearing was important. I didn't want to have to drag any man to church. Like, that was just something I didn't find it cute. I don't want to have to deal with that. I'm very social. I had some friends who, when they got married, it's like their guy just wanted them to stay home, and every time they were going out, they had a problem, and then, or their guy wanted to come along to everything. So then we stopped inviting them because we were tired of bringing him, and it was just like, so I was just like, I needed someone who was good with being social. Like, we're not at an event, he's just in a corner not talking to anybody, but also someone that didn't feel like I need to be everywhere where you are because I need to know where I wanted to still be free, and also someone who would blend in with my family. So I wanted to see, how was he with my friends? How was he with my church family? How was he with my family? How was he with kids? Like, I had a friend that said, you better see him in 4 seasons, because, winter depression is a thing. Like, I need to see, how are you in the winter time? How are you, like, when it gets hot?
Right.
When you get really mad at me, what happens? Like, I needed, those are the things that were on my list, is something that I would have to see over time. Because going back to what Jay said, it's all about that character. I wanted to know, how are you with me when I'm at my worst?
Right.
Are you someone that will pour into me, or will you be like, can you call your mama? Is your sister available to handle that? So
That's deep. And that's still a list, sis.
true, it is. But I didn't have
A
like
very good list, by the way. Very
but
good.
I couldn't really put it all the way. I knew what I was looking for. I just didn't have like specific words like heartbreaking, and I didn't have that.
You're not a shallow person, so I definitely could understand that. So that's good. You both had a list, and most of it was based on values, core values. So being that you guys met in
2019
and were dating during the pandemic,
Oh,
how were you able to make sure that he's, met those qualifications, so to speak, and vice versa? Like, how was dating during the pandemic? How did you date? Like, how did you date? We were on lockdown.
Courting during COVID was different. It was like
Wait, say that again.
courting during COVID.
Courting.
Yeah, courting during COVID was different.
Can you tell people what courting means?
Well, dating and courting is different. Dating is more so it's more so getting to know someone, while courting is actually desiring to be with that person more intentional. Because you can date several people, but you're only going to court one person because the intent is for marriage.
Come on now.
But dating, yeah. So courting during COVID was different because you had nothing but time to talk. And then we were on lockdown. And so it was like, okay, I had my apartment, she had her house. And I was like, look, since we can't go nowhere because the government said we can't, we would go back and forth. Well, I would go back and forth. I'd go, come over there, we'd have dinner or cook or something like that, get to know each other, Netflix, without the chill. And then, I go back to my apartment or whatever. That's how we did it. And that was different because we were forced to talk about everything. I mean everything. Like I'm Black American. I'm as black as you gonna get. I'm
black.
I'm enough black.
Blackity black.
Just so black.
Black American black.
Yeah.
Like collard greens
Oh
and
man, like
your family still eat pork black.
Yeah.
Okay.
High blood pressure and pork, all of it. And my wife, from Miami, Jamaican and Haitian young lady. And so
spicy.
Yeah.
So you like spicy food?
No, she likes spicy food.
So you like spicy women?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I was being slow. And so courting during that, we were forced to talk about everything. Forced to talk about different cultures, forced to kind of actually hammer out everything that most people do like first year of marriage. And so we were able to kind of get ahead of it because we wanted things to last and things to be real. So, we went to classes, we went to premarital counseling. Oh, you fasting? Oh, we're going.
Yeah,
okay.
He is. Get him, girl. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So courting during COVID, it was quite interesting. Well, so when I met him, when he talked about having deep conversations, one of the first conversations we had was about our cultures. Like because when you're talking to somebody online, you're not hearing them. You're like talking to them. It's all through texting, right? The first time I heard his voice, I was like, oh, he's like black. So I'm gonna say like. No, like seriously, like it was because it was that Southern. I said, "Where is he from?"
Okay, because he said Lord.
Like he had said, "I reckon." I was like, "Is reckon still in the dictionary?" Like that? And immediately, because again, when I say my first relationship, I was so afraid of picking wrong because I had been without for so long that I would scrutinize or. I not cruel, but like critical. I was so critical of everything because I was like, this has to be right. I don't want to pick wrong. And I didn't trust myself.
So you literally were thinking, this is the only person I'm going to date, and then I'm going to marry this person. Or that was your intention?
My intention was to find someone that I would marry. So I didn't want to have to go through a whole bunch of people. I'm like, it took me forever to find this one. I just some people actually told me, don't let him make you his girlfriend. Put that on the shelf and still shop around. So how you gonna tell me to shop around?
You've been shopping around for 10 years.
I've been shopping around. But our first conversation was about blackness. Like I remember telling him, I was like, I don't think I'm your kind of black, because I had because island folk, I love my island people, but y'all know black American, you gonna bring that black American here?
Listen,
No,
I'm
like
not an islander, but I get it.
That's
Because my ex-husband is Jamaican and Angolan. And I was on the other end of that. Me and your husband have a lot in common. I was on the other
So
end
I
of
was
that.
afraid. I was like, how is this gonna work? Like, are we gonna understand the same things? Like,
Yeah.
is he gonna think that I'm black enough? Like, so we were able to have a lot of, when I say he got me by conversation, and of course he's handsome.
Oh, come on.
But the
Aw.
conversation was really like, this is a man who had discernment, who loved the Lord, who could talk to you about things of the world, like things that I said it didn't turn him off. It'll be like, okay, my baby's a little crazy. Let's talk about this a little more. Like, and we were able to really talk about things.
That's good. I can tell you guys are friends.
Oh yes.
That's very important, right? Was that important for you also before you
yes.
guys decided to?
Yes,
Take it further.
I'm very honest and open. I'm not going to tiptoe around you with stuff. So if I can't speak freely, I'm not speaking. And that's how I am. I'm like, I'm not
Oh,
gonna
that
tiptoe.
explains it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
like a Caribbean, but you're American.
Yeah, kind
Got
of. I joke with her mom like I'm an old Jamaican woman on the inside.
Yes.
I really am. I really. I'm telling you. And so that was very important for us to be friends, for us to have conversations.
good.
And then Teresa's beautiful, so I was like, all right, it works.
No, that's all right. You better.
She can get away with some stuff because she's beautiful. So.
Yes, I love your skin. My sister and you are the same complexion. And when she used to get jealous of me about my hair, and I'll be jealous of her about her skin. I'm like, girl, you got the best skin. You don't even get blemishes or nothing. So I love it. So what did it exactly look like though when you were dating? You said you came over, you had dinner, you had conversation. Was that pretty much it? And then you decided to get married? Like at what point did you decide to get married?
So court, after a while of him coming over a lot, one thing I'm gonna admit, when he moved to Orlando, I got scared, because in talking to him, I said, this is a man who's looking for a wife. He's not playing. No, like he's not playing. Like I've been saying I want this for a long time, but am I truly ready? Because I know that he means business.
Yeah.
Am I ready for it? Am I gonna be good enough for what he needs? Because I know he's not wasting time.
Yeah.
And so the intentionality, which is something that I think we don't focus a lot on, is like what it means to truly be intentional. When we see, God's ministry, when Christ was walking around there, every single thing he did was for the mission, was for the ministry. Like it was intentional and it was serious. And so when it came to courting, everything that he did was intentional and it was serious. And so there was a level of responsibility and honesty I had to have with myself to be able to walk on that same road with him, knowing that, this man, I think this man's going to be my husband. Oh my God, I start freaking out. Like I started freaking out. And so after a year of dating, having conversations, we'll talk a little later about the counseling. And we were also afraid, like, I'm going to be honest, we were afraid like everyone else was with COVID. So there came a time where he was like, look, we ain't doing nothing. Like, I know we're saving it for marriage. Like, we don't know how long this thing is going to last. I want to marry you. So like, let's just put this thing together. And so under normal circumstances, we would not have cohabitated before getting married. But it was COVID. There was so much going on. And with his apartment, he was barely ever there. It was like, okay, let's do this thing. So we had a down payment on a venue before we even got the marriage license. My mom was like, but wait, when did they start doing that? There's no ring. I didn't hear anything about a proposal. What do you mean you have a down payment on a venue? Like, what is that? But Jay was like, he said, look, I know you have your heart set on a place. Let's get it, because you already know I'm marrying you. And so we were like, okay, let's go.
I like that you're a man of your word. So when you said you don't like liars, you included yourself in that, because a lot of men say that, or a lot of people say that, but they themselves are the biggest liars.
No, I'm not. No, whatever I say, I'm gonna try to always do.
That's
You
good.
know,
That's really good.
because doing that and then during that time when we had got the venue and situated, and then we skipped the part. I took her to meet my mom in Mississippi,
At what
and
point was that in your relationship?
was that a 3 month?
Yeah, it was like 3 months.
Because I was like, all right,
Oh, wow.
because I'm like, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I don't trust that. I need my mom. I need my mother to come look at this woman. Because maybe I don't. Maybe I
Wise
don't see what I
man.
should
Wise
be.
man.
Yeah, I'm like, nah, ma, come look at her real quick. I'll fly over there.
Come look at this. Come look at
And
this.
so I took her to meet my mother and my baby sister. And you know, my baby sister's like my heart. She might, you know, I love my baby sister. But she's very protective of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, y'all size up. I'm gonna go over here. I left her with
You left her with them.
Yeah,
You left her with them.
She was all right. Yeah. Yeah, they was like,
Good job, Teresa.
mhm.
Seal the deal.
She sealed the deal. They was like, Nick, we love her. We love her so much. Don't you beep this up.
Oh, that's when you know you got
I
a
was
good
like,
one.
Yeah, I was like, okay, my mama cussed me out for you. All right, well, glory be to God. I guess that's it.
Amen. And you, Teresa, did you take him to meet your parents?
So again, I had a plan. I was like, you meet a guy, you date him for like 6 months, and then in the 6th month, that's when you know it's real. And so you introduce him to your family and the people that are super important. So the day we made it official, which was 3 months into knowing him in total, I ended up going to the hospital for like I had a fever that just wasn't going down, and they wanted to see what was going on. I ended up going. It wasn't a very pleasant experience. So I went to the hospital literally the day after we made it official, and he was still living in Jacksonville at the time. So when he found out I was in the hospital, he was like, I'm coming. And I was like, nah, you don't need to see me like that. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm fine. And he's like, you need to tell me what's going on. I'm your nurse. I said, you are a nurse. You are not my nurse. Like, I said, this is a new man. I don't know this. He gonna find me in a gown and everything. This is not cute.
Okay.
And when I was admitted, my mom drove up. The Smiths, Dan and Rebecca Hudson. They came. Some of my closest friends came to just make sure everything was okay. And so because he drove down, automatically he had to meet everybody. Yeah. And I was like, this is not how it's supposed to be.
Come on, guys.
And
your
like he stayed
than
till I was discharged. Like, and my mom, she said, look, it's not about the one that makes you feel hot in the pants. It's not about the one that thinks he's God's gift to women. It's about the man that your children can look up to. It's about the man that knows the Lord. That was her way of I love you, mama. But she don't want to tell me directly, don't mess this up.
Yeah.
But it was like an indirect way of saying, don't mess this up. And so I asked my mom, I said, what was it about him that made you go, this is it? She said, the way he took care of you. I was like, okay, I can trust him with my daughter.
Dang, y'all about to make me spin the block. Okay, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me, okay? But that's awesome. But that really is true. Oh, I thought you were getting teary. I was about to say, don't do that now. You're about to make me cry up here, okay? So I don't even remember my next question. I'm not even gonna lie. That just threw me off. Hold on, y'all. Wait a minute. That took me out. It really is the little things, but really there are big things, that matter, because when it's all said and done, even if you have children and they leave the nest and it's just the two of you guys, what it boils down to is the conversation and how much you care about one another. Help starts, God forbid, depleting, for some people as they age. And I don't know. A lot of what you thought about, especially like being prepared, as a woman to be a wife, because the Bible says he that findeth a wife, like you're finding a wife, you're not finding a woman. And so like I think about that myself too. Like, am I ready? And I'm someone that was already married, but I'm sorry, Lord. I did mess it up. I don't curse. I was going to say F, but that's, y'all probably was going to get me for that. So anyway, yeah, I did mess it up. And, I learned a lot from that. So seeing that you guys were that intentional about it is really impressive. It's very impressive. Speaking of which, I know you told me that you guys did like some premarital, engagement
Oh.
counseling.
Yeah, I
First of all,
got
did
you.
y'all actually have it? Wait, before you get into that, let me just ask: did you actually have an engagement?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So how did that happen?
Yes. I was getting ready to move out of my apartment. I had bought the ring already. I finna ready to move out of my apartment. I'm like, I'm not finna, go into this woman's place without being engaged. I'm just not gonna do that. That's just I never hear the end up from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, how I'm gonna pop this question because Teresa's so nosy. She is so no. What you doing? What you doing? What you doing? So I can't hide nothing. So I'm like, how? So I tried to plan. I had a whole thing planned at a restaurant, Bonefish Grill, and then they end up calling me. It was like, oh, well, we shut down, so your engagement party is canceled. I'm like, I gotta come up with a whole engagement thing off the rip. Oh, so let me see. So I moved everything out. Then we had made it to her apartment. I'm like, okay. So I turned the shower on in the bathroom, let it fog up, and go, will you marry me? And then I turned it off, and I was like trying to get her to, oh, babe, what's going on with your bathroom? And she was like, what? Something going on with your bathroom? She was like, what? I was like, would you please go look at what's going on with your bathroom?
Look at her face.
So first of all,
Look at her face.
because I had helped him move out. So I was there that day cleaning, the apartment out so he could move it into the house, and he was acting really weird that day. And I'm like, what is wrong with him? Like, I already did the heavy lift. All you gotta do is sign the papers at the front. And so by the time we get back to my house, to our house, we were hungry. I was tired. And so he's telling me about something in the bathroom. Now I'm annoyed because I'm like, what's in the bathroom? But I didn't know that he had written something on the glass. And so by the time I get to the bathroom, it already fogged back up. So I'm looking in the bathroom and I'm like, what? And I'm getting ready to, like, what is that? And he was on one knee in the hallway. And I was so mad because I knew I had a feeling something was going to happen. So I had bought a new dress. I was like, I think something might happen this weekend. And he wait till I'm in workout clothes. I'm like, I'm not even cute.
And that's how you know he really loves you. He didn't care how you look, baby. You came out there with a headscarf and your moo on. He still was. You married me. That's awesome. So now we'd like to delve more into how you guys prepared because you both were intentional, from what we learned about your story so far. So what did that intentionality look like as you were dating and engaged?
Well, premarital counseling. Teresa brought it up first, which she brought it up first, and I was like, premarital counseling. You sure you gonna marry me? Like, you want to have premarital counseling? You okay? Fine. I guess. And so then we were trying to decide like who, and so that's when we met Bushner. And well, yeah, I met Bushner. She knew Bushner, but she was like, whoever we were going to talk to, I had to like.
Yeah,
and so
that's important.
After I met Bushner, I was like, oh, he's solid. He's a real one. Okay, all right. This is a man I can take. Punching me in my chest. I can verbally take him punching me in my chest. I can take that because I respect him. I was like, okay, and that was because with guys, I have to respect you to receive something from you.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I just can't receive something from you.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, I think that's for anyone. I'm in a somewhat of a leadership position at my place of employment, and I was interviewing someone, and I asked them how do they take constructive criticism, and I said, be honest, like give me your honest answer, like we're old friends. And she told me I would take it depending on who's giving it, meaning how they're giving it. And I said, you know what? I like that response because that's so true. We like to think that we'll listen to anybody that has good advice, but you have to, in order for people to, take on any advice from you, they first got to know that you care. Yeah. Like the saying goes, they got to know that they can trust you. So that's important.
For me, when I brought up the counseling, because again, being intentional, I just didn't I wanted to set us up and myself for the best foot forward going into marriage. I know a lot of people now that because as a therapist, I'm going to mention counseling. And when I bring it up, premarital counseling, I literally had a girl tell me, oh no, premarital counseling broke up my sister and her boyfriend. So we're not doing that. And I thought to myself, okay, well, if that broke them up, then maybe they needed I mean,
Right.
I don't know, because
That
you
was
do
the
have some
purpose.
not so great
The
counselors too. But
purpose.
for me, when we got to our first repetitive argument or issue, that's when I said, no, we need an extra, because we're not taught, like, as a community, effective communication or how to really
Excuse me, you're experiencing technical difficulties.
I was like,
Speaking of
exactly.
ineffective communication.
We're not taught effective communication or active listening or specific problem solving skills when it comes to relationships. We're just taught to survive. You just figure it out, but no one tells you what that figuring out is. So when we got to our first repetitive issue, that's when I said, oh no, someone needs to guide us so that we're not so in love that we're missing
The red flags.
key issues.
Right.
That
At what point in your relationship was that?
what, 6 months in? Between 6 and 9 months.
Okay. So you met, I just want to recap the timeline of your relationship.
Yeah, so
So
we met
you
in
met
February
online.
in 2019.
Okay, and online.
Yep.
And in 3 months, you each had met each other's parents.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in between there, you put down a down payment.
No, that was after a year.
After a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And so after 6 months, you started doing
pre-engagement counseling.
Okay. And then a year, you put down the deposit on a venue. And then after the year, you guys were engaged.
Yes. Yeah. So we met in 2019 of February, but we got married in 2020 of October. Yeah. So by the time we got married, it had been a year and 5 months that we had been together all together.
Okay. All right. Continue. So about the premarital.
Yeah. So we did pre-engagement counseling because we needed guidance. We needed someone to teach us how to date. Because a lot of times people are wrapped up in either just the infatuation, like, yeah, either they're doing too much chilling, and when you spend time chilling, you don't spend any time talking,
right?
And then it's not that the person changed, you didn't even know who they were to begin with because you were too busy chilling.
Come on, wait, say that again. That's a nugget. That's a nugget.
So, we didn't do any chilling because I was like, look, no, we are not chilling. I'm not going to, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's not that I had, what is it? Self-control. It's just I didn't have a man. And I'm like, I can't have the first man come. Now I'm chilling all of a sudden. I was like, no, we're gonna wait to chill. Okay. And so all it left was time to talk.
Right.
So when we got to that first repetitive issue, it's not that we're an issue, it's just we don't know how to fix the problem. So we needed help learning how to resolve problems before we even get to buying a ring.
Right. That's smart. And before you get to
become a bigger problem
than you, and
right,
cohabitating and all those things that complicate relationships
and prolongs bad situations.
Yep. So it was something you said, about the no chill. So I was very impressed by that, especially nowadays, even people in the church, so we're not exempt. We actually are the example. And I was really impressed with your husband, to be honest, because we as women, I think if you're on that path of saving yourself for marriage, or if you're on that path of being abstinent, I think once you start on that path, and I'm speaking from experience as well, it is a lot easier to stay on it for yourself. But usually we waver because of the man. And so, and I'm sorry, not to blame y'all, okay? But this has been my experience and others' experience that I've talked to about this.
It's okay to blame us.
And so, and the audience agrees. So for a man to be truly intentional about waiting until marriage is very commendable in this day and age. What was your mindset about that? I mean, was it easier because you were her first boyfriend, or?
It was hard. Pause. But it was challenging. So I was asleep one day. One day I was sleeping, and the Lord just woke me up, just as clear as day. He was like, "Do not have sex with my daughter." And I was like, okay, all right. It's like 3 something in the morning, and the Lord don't ever wake me up about about, nothing about no woman. And so I was like, okay. And I couldn't go back to sleep. I said, I guess I'm just up now. And then the more I got to know her, it was like, oh, okay, all right. Because when he told me that, I just, I'm thinking he telling me that because, like, hey, don't be a dog. Okay. Don't bite the bone because it's in front of you.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, okay, well, fine. I guess I won't do no biting, Jesus. and but the more I got to know her, I was like, okay, if this did occur, it will ruin her perspective of us from that day forth. She'll never be able to have a good perspective of our relationship. And I saw that more and more the more I got to know her. I was like, oh, this would be devastating.
Yeah.
If I was, pluck a pedal, this would be awful, Jesus, because she won't be able to resolve that. The way she is in her spirit, she would not be able to resolve that as far as honoring our marriage from that day forth. She wouldn't have been able to.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful that you recognize that. That shows that your mindset was to protect her heart, like you said earlier, to be careful with her. And that shows that you do have real love, which, that agape love is beyond yourself and your own desires, but you care more about your wife. You actually love your wife like the Bible calls.
And then she looked good. So it was just like, God,
it was really hard.
Yeah, it's like, man, go do something here. Go. You got 1,000 friends. Go spend time with them.
That's interesting. Yeah, I was wondering about that because I'm like, y'all spent a lot of time together in close proximity during the time where the world was shut down. So that had to be a challenge for at least one of y'all.
I was terrified.
And I will give Jay as well as the Lord, a lot of credit, because I think leadership, when we talk about leadership in a man, it's beyond finances or protection. Like, how often am I going to get beat up? Like, do you really have to protect me from
don't even
like I just like who's jumping me? I haven't been jumping forever. Like, so it's like, we always think of the protection and the providing, but protection goes beyond physical. Right. It goes beyond, because there were times where I'm going to admit, which, we're married now, so it's okay. But there were times where I was like, is he just not like feeling me like that? Like, why is he not trying something? Like, so, there were times where I said, let me tease him a little bit. Like,
let me make sure he on this side of the fence. Okay.
And there was one day talking about setting boundaries. He said, don't play with me like that. And I said, I will not play with you like that. And that was that. Because going back to leadership, man of God, he was like, I already know this is not going to work in your favor if we go any further. So don't play with me like that. And so I said, you know what, babe, I would not play with you like that.
That's girl. God loves you, honey, a lot. I'm telling you, you are favored by the Lord greatly. Your mama had some powerful prayers. Grandma, everybody, his mama. Listen. All right. Yes, Lord. I'm ready. Y'all ready too? Oh, okay. So, in the same vein of preparedness, right? You're in mental health. So there's no easy way to ask this, but anyway, how did you guys deal with character flaws and childhood trauma in dating and in marriage? If you care to share, I mean, you can be as, discreet or open as you want to.
So a lot of times we think we're over something until we're faced with it again. Just giving a little brief, because I didn't have any experience in relationship. There were certain, insecurities and things that I had, but he had some relationship trauma from a previous relationship. A lot of that showed up in our relationship. And sometimes you get faced, especially, I had a friend that said, don't let his trauma become your trauma. Because that's what happened. Like, trauma is just passed from one person to person. Yes. A hurt person hurts another person, and then that person hurts another person. We keep just passing it on. And I had to get to a place where I'm like, I don't know how to help him with this. I don't know what to do about this. And I don't want it to now become an issue for me if we don't work out in the next situation. So having to be able to see someone past their issue and dissecting whether or not the issue that you're having with them is truly an issue between the two of you, or something that that person is dealing with that you can help them past. Now, a lot of times we think, oh, we can heal someone's issue because he had a lot of trust issues based on his past experience. But I had to get to a place when we had one of those, I call it D-Day almost, because it was like the big argument where I had to decide, am I going to stay with him, or do I have to move on? Because I don't know how much more I can deal with the lack of trust because of the trauma. And so I had to get to a place for myself where I had to choose me and be okay with, you know what, even though it took me forever to find this wonderful man, I have to trust God to know that, first of all, you didn't find him, God brought him.
Yeah.
And that if you have to let this one go, God will still provide the next time. So I'm not going to, I have to be able to draw the line in the sand to be like, look, this is what I'm not going to do anymore.
Right.
Here's the deal breaker.
Right.
But once you figure out how to manage or how to heal from that, I need to know what that looks like so that I can support you in your healing. I'm not the reason why you heal, but I'll be there while you're healing.
Yes, to support. Yeah.
Because there's nothing I can do because I didn't put it there. So I can't take it away.
Right.
But I can be there while you're finding that healing, because you have to keep the communication open. Because I don't need a 20% walking around talking about, well, I can tell her this, I can't tell my wife that. No, she's 20%. You're going to keep me in the loop.
I know that's
as to what's going on while you're healing. And then with my own childhood, trauma.
Wait, before you get into yours, I wanted to. So did the premarital, pre-engagement counseling help at all with that? Help to prepare you for that?
Yes, it did. It did. Because, like she said, I had some trust issues, but I couldn't identify my reaction to it versus her.
Okay.
But so premarital counseling kind of him like, oh, I'm not responding to Teresa. I'm responding to this, and Teresa is just the stimulant to this. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is my fault. God, I'm already starting out.
What a revelation.
Like, well, I guess it's not us, this is me. And I was like, okay. So once that became identified, because that is the biggest issue, is actually identifying what the problem is and where it's coming from and why it's happening.
Yes.
And so when we kept running into that, I was like, oh, okay, this is really helping.
So with you being a minister, did you see any spiritual implications or anything that you think, you're from the deep South, we tend to be very, very aware of people doing all kinds of spiritual foolishness. So how did you look at it from that perspective at all?
Yes, I did. A lot of times when I speak about men. Most men are Ahab. And especially Southern men. Most men are Ahab, which means they're just used to listening to whoever they love. They don't have a sense of self-esteem, anything like that. It's workhorse, mule type situation. Yeah. And so when you actually become involved with someone who cares about you as a person, that is something that's so new to you that it's almost something that you just don't believe.
Yeah, hard to accept it.
It's hard to accept it.
Yeah.
So you are consistently questioning within yourself
when is the other shoe gonna fall?
Yeah. When's the other? You just bracing.
Yeah.
And then you be like, oh, I can actually stop bracing.
Yeah.
And so, but that process looks ugly.
I'm most men, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
And we don't really talk about like relationship trauma from a guy standpoint, because women, I'm a woman, so I can say this, a lot of times we're the victim.
Yeah,
we're always, no matter what, we're the victim. So we know our story, we know our issues. But when it comes to going back to, I remember telling Jay, I was like, you do know you're a person, right? He's like, what do you mean I'm a person? I care about your feelings. Like, I really want to know how you feel. But he thought I was lying to him.
Like, what you talking about?
He thought thought I was lying when I actually asked him. He was like, well, what's the catch? Why do you want to know how I feel? Like, how are you going to use this against me later?
Exactly. Okay, technical.
All right.
You know what? The devil stay busy. Every episode, there's something. He don't want this message to get out, but it's getting out.
Yeah, he doesn't want. So, telling him that because I remember when we were talking, this was before we made it official, there was something he said, the Lord gave me a little discernment of myself. And there was something that he said in conversation. And I asked him, I said, do you trust women? He's like, yeah, of course I trust women. But but he wasn't in a position where he had to trust someone again. So when he had to be in a position where he actually had to trust someone again, that's when he realized, oh, wow, I am not over this.
Yeah.
Because one thing I mentioned on the Squad and Friends, tune in if you haven't, on the Squad and Friends, we talked a lot. we talk a lot about, we had an episode where we talked about triggers. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, a trigger is an internal alarm system to show you where you're not yet free.
Yes.
So if something happens and you're triggered by it, it's not the other person's job to fix it, and it's not even their fault.
Right.
It's an alarm for you to realize, oh, I'm still struggling here. Oh, absolutely. I'm still not free here.
Absolutely. From personal experience, I can co-sign that. That's not cap, as they say. We kind of just met there in the middle of the road and stayed. But I would like to circle back around to the character
One of the biggest thing for me, because when I met Jay, I already owned a home. I was working in a thank you. I was 26 when I closed on my first home. And when I met him, I was 29. And I remember the day I closed, I thought to myself, I'm never going to find a man now. Like, because I thought to myself, maybe they'll be intimidated by this, or they might just want to be with me because they're going to have a place to lay up, or, who. Right. And so I'm like, who am I going to find that's going to be okay with all of this? So one of the major things that was a issue for me when we were talking about flaws is that I spent a lot of time alone. I spent a lot of time figuring everything out for myself, handling the bills, handling the lawn, handling furniture, moving things in. So when he came talking about allowing a man to do what in my house? Like, what you mean you want to put a fridge over there? Like, the fridge doesn't belong there. It belongs here. Like, what do you mean? Like, I got this. And so being able to let go of control, like, I realized how controlling
Teresa,
I was.
Come on now.
I gotta tell it like it is. Like, I was very controlling because living my life by myself as an adult for so long. How am I like? What? No. I have to live up to caring about his feelings. You really care about this? No, keep it white. That's the color it's supposed to be. Like.
So Jay, how did you receive that? I don't want to say handle because that could be a trigger. So we can say how did you receive that? How did it make you feel?
I was like, challenge accepted. I was like, okay, fine. Well, I guess this is conflict. What I learned from premarital counseling, conflict is normal, inevitable, and healthy. And
say that again.
It's normal, inevitable, and healthy conflict. And I was like, okay, well. Yeah, shout out to the Bryants. I was like, well, we gonna have conflict. That's fine. We still love each other. We just gonna have these disagreements, and we gonna see who win this one, who lose that one, or do we both win this one or not? Because it just was like, well, I'm in it for the long haul, so this wall, we just gonna have disagreements about this wall. It doesn't
At
matter.
some point, it's not gonna be white.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna see how long can I wear you down about this fridge, and I'm gonna make it fun. I'm gonna be like, okay, it's Tuesday at 3 o'clock.
So wait, get the mic back to Jay. So in regards, so okay, we're talking about that one particular or arguments in general, but in regards to the character flaw of being controlling, how did you
Okay.
receive that?
Well, it took me off guard because she's so
Sweet.
yes,
Yeah.
and it was like, are you being snarky? Are you? Oh, you finna try to make me do so? Oh, yes. And so it was kind of like my mothers are ex-military. So I am used to dealing with someone who is controlling, and I am used to being obstinate to that. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm well versed in dealing with someone that's controlling, but I can't be like all of that way with you. I love you, you know, like man, woman love. So it's like, so I had to learn not how to incentivize, but how to encourage. How can I encourage her to be more agreeable like this? Because the word of God says, how can two walk together unless they agree?
Right. Come
So
on,
I
man
gotta
of
get
God.
her to agree with me about this.
Right.
So I was like, okay, if I want her to agree with me about this, but she doesn't understand that she's being controlling, then what I have to do is let patience have her perfect work. Yeah, I
That's
may be
right. And
entire
finish
lacking
that
nothing.
work. Right.
So I'm gonna do a little bit of this. I'm gonna do a little bit of that. I'm gonna do a little bit of this, and then it's kind of like almost like you're having to wear your mate down in a good way to get them to go, oh, okay, okay, and
You're
then
allowing the Holy Spirit to work.
yeah, because I'm like, I'm not gonna, like I said in the beginning, I'm not gonna force you, but I'm also not gonna bend.
Right. That's what I wanted to explore, because with you being the head, the leader of your family, and just a man in general, usually men don't back down from any type of challenge. You know, it turns on your masculinity, and then it makes you start having this battle, with one another, whether that's your wife or anybody else. And so I imagine that your mindset had to be a lot different in your response and in your approach to how you get things done, because you love this woman and you care for her heart. Yeah. So I'm glad you said that. That was good.
And I do want to give a shout out to our community. Like, we have really great friends, family friends that truly love us. And I've had enough, homegirls that would say to me, is this the hill you want to die on? Like, you have to ask yourself, what kind of marriage do you really want? And figure out what is it that you need to do to have what it is that you say you want.
That's good.
Yeah.
Say that again.
You have to figure out what is it you have to do to get what you say you want. Because you can say all day long, oh, I want this harmonious relationship. But if you're dying on every hill, then what kind of relationship are you going to have?
Exactly. You got to know what you want and how to get there, right? That's good. That's really good. So I have 1,000 more questions, and this would probably never end, but I'm looking at the time, so I'm not going to ask all of them. But there was something that the both of you said, and I don't remember what my question was. This is so good. Normally I'm able to multitask, but y'all are capturing all of my attention. I'm not even lying. I'm up here taking mental notes like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna do that. This is so good. So thank you. Oh yes, that brings me to my next question. So you guys are both firstborns, which kind of goes back to what we were just talking about as far as like the assertiveness and independence and all of that. Do you think that individualism could live in a marriage? Is that something that you can maintain?
Oh yes, you need to keep a good, strong sense of self, because you don't want to lose yourself in your mate. Because that's the quickest way to resent your mate. I gave up me to become what you wanted, and I didn't leave anything of myself that I enjoyed. That's not what you want to do. So like I always wanted my mate to have their own self, a strong self, because I have a strong character. So I need a strong person to kind of deal to help. I need some help.
Right.
And so I needed a strong help me. And so having individualism has always been something like in my family, in the South, it's bootstrap pulling, stand on your own 2 feet type of situation. So getting into marriage with Teresa, it was like, oh, okay, it's like keeping your individualism, the good parts. It's having to keep the good parts of your individualism.
Yeah.
And then knowing, okay, well, this single part of me gotta die. So me being whole is a good thing. Me being individualistically whole is good. But whatever single mind I had, I'm married and I gotta let it go.
Yeah, the two cleave to each other.
Yeah.
They become one flesh. So I was thinking about that as I was writing this question, because I'm thinking individuality, yes, because you do want to keep a strong sense of self. But individualism, meaning to be independent and wanting to do things on your own, how would that really work in a marriage if the two are to become one? Or are you really dependent on yourself because the two are one?
So we talk about everything. So in the sense of independence, well, how that looks in our relationship is, if like I still have girl trips that are annual, with solid women. Do I have unsolid? I don't have any unsolid women, but
they be like, bro, watch her. Check the phone, bro. Check the phone.
So things that were important to me before I met him are still important to me, and still things that I feed even with him. So I'm still there for my family. I'm still there for my friends. He's my priority, after God and myself, because we got to talk about that order. But he's still priority,
because usually we get that order mixed up.
We mix that order up a lot. So, I'll get there. But we talk about everything. I'm not doing my own thing without talking to him about it. When we were getting married and we planned for the wedding, I know he didn't care about anything but how the cake tasted and how much everything cost. That's all he cared about. But I still went to him. How do you feel about this? What do you think about that? Because I never wanted him to feel like a prop in my life. And a lot of times, sometimes as women, we treat our husbands like a prop. You're a piece for the picture that I'm painting for myself. But I wanted him to know that, no, you're a part of my life. And not only are you a part of my life, but I'm a part of yours. So your feelings do matter. I want to know your opinion. I want you to be in the loop. We make decisions together, but I'm still Teresa. I'm still bubbly. I'm still extra. When we go out, he says all the time, he says he loves being the wife. He'll just be like, hey, yes, I'm Teresa's husband. And they'll be like, and he's good being in wherever he is, letting me do whatever I do, because I'm still me and he's still him. We're not here to change each other. So the individualism is still there, because that's what attracted us to each other in the first place. But we still live our lives together.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And you guys complement each other very well. So that's awesome. And I assume that you both are fixers, being firstborns.
Oh, yeah.
Am I right? So that's a good combination. You did your big one, God. Okay, thank you. I'm about to hijack Teresa's list around this month. Okay. Because, you guys are put together very well. And that really shows the difference between including God and making him the center of your relationship versus just finding a relationship. Yeah, I love that. So what's coming up next for you guys? I know you've been married for 4 years. Are we talking children? Am I being too nosy?
I'm shooting. We'll see what happens.
Come
We're
on.
going on a cruise. Our first cruise. It's her second. Yeah, and so it'll be my first cruise for my birthday. So
When is your birthday?
August the 9th.
Oh, nice. Happy early birthday. Enjoy the cruise.
Yeah.
And if you want, come back with some babies. Okay.
We had a lot of transitions in our relationship outside of like COVID. Like, I was in school. Then when I left school, he went to school. He just graduated last month. So there was so much, because I remember when we were cutting our cake, people were in the back like, when's the baby? Like, hello. We didn't even leave the reception yet, and so it's like we had to remind ourselves that people are gonna people.
Yeah.
And that we just have to do this the way that we need to do it,
Yes.
because and I tell people all the time, God opens wombs. So if you have a question, ask him. Like, don't ask me. So we just go from there. But there were so many things that we had planned for us that we wanted to hash out before bringing extra people. I want to enjoy my man just a
I
little
know
bit
that's
more,
right, girl.
just a little bit more.
Okay. Listen, I'm right there with you. I'm a little older, so I'm just gonna be like Janina, and I'm gonna be like Abraham and all those other people and Sarah and them, and like, okay, Lord, you do your thing. But I do want to enjoy. So you guys have been so encouraging, and I just love y'all. Y'all my new besties, T and J. Coming to y'all for some advice. So get ready. Y'all almost OGs. So now if anyone has any questions online or in the audience, we would gladly take them at this time. Have about 5 minutes. No questions? I asked them all. Hey, I did a good job. Well, this has been episode. Oh, we do have a question. Come to the mic, ma'am. Okay, I'll ask your question. What's your question? Oh yes, because we the single delegation would like to know where the rest of y'all at. Okay. Are there any for the online audience? The audience member asks where Jeremiah comes from. Are there any more brothers or cousins or any? We need to go to the deep south, y'all. You from Mississippi, right? What part of Mississippi you from?
I'm from Jackson.
Okay, let's go
the
to
city.
Jackson.
It's a little rough. It's a little rough out there. Look, I'm the last of my friends to be married. Like even though I'm like 38, I'm the last one to get married. They all like, took you long enough. You're youngin', So yeah, it's in the family's big in the South.
Yes.
So like you not being married at 32 is just crazy.
Yeah.
It's almost offensive. Your mama take it like you did something to her.
Where my grandbabies at?
You don't have no children. She takes it like a betrayal. My mom was ecstatic when me and Teresa. So,
but your mom in the military, right? So she got married young, right?
Because
that's the thing for military
she
people.
got married
right?
after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she got married. I'm 38. My mom got married like in her 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, so she got married older.
So you can use that, mama. Well, you can't now, but at that point.
Oh, brothers and cousins. I only have one younger brother. He's getting married in October.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. And my cousins, they all right.
So what about your uncles? Are they married? The people from your church back at home.
My uncle's married. Like everybody's married. If they're not married, they dead.
Oh, we don't want them. We don't want them. No, that thing. You know what? I find that to be true. When I lived in Huntsville, and I'm first generation Adventist, like I said, we have similar backgrounds. I noticed too that in the deep south, because we southern in Florida, but we ain't deep south, right? So like Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, for the people that's northern, is the deep south. And I did notice while I was in Alabama that a lot of guys are married young and like family, like they're faithful. They go to church, maybe not on Saturday, but they go to church, no shade, but just saying, I noticed that, and I think that's. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I met a couple, and this was like back in 2010, 2011. They were 19 and 20, and they were already married for like 2 or 3 years. And I said, and they're still married to this day. Beautiful family. I think they have like 2 or 3 kids, and I thought to myself, man, that's really young. And he was like, that's young for Florida. But here in Texas, we care about family. We care. He said, y'all are over there running fast, trying to make money. We're over here building legacies.
Okay, come on, Ricky Bobby.
I need to go to Texas.
Come on, Ricky Bobby. Yeah, speaking of that advice. Speaking of advice, what is the best advice that you all got from the premarital engagement? I keep struggling with pre-engagement. I guess it hasn't normalized in my mind yet, but I like the idea of it.
Oh yeah. So the pre-engagement was before we got engaged, and then the premarital was before we got married. My biggest takeaway was to just talk truly about everything. When we got married, there was a couple that was jogging in the park, because we had a big ceremony. Yes, we got married on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
but we had a
You're not
smaller.
into football, huh?
We still have people that are
Oh.
still trying to forgive us. They just
Oh,
forgave
wow.
us. But we had a smaller ceremony in October of 2020. That's where we officially got married. There was a couple jogging in the park. It was their 27th anniversary that day. And so I asked them, what is your biggest advice? And they looked at each other and simultaneously said, keep talking. And then they jogged. We have to, one thing that
Angels from the
I
Lord.
love about Jay is that, we don't go more than 24 hours without resolving something like this. If we having a thing, you go take a nap, I'm gonna take a nap, we gonna give it by the day, we're gonna finish this. We're not going into the rest of this week like this. Praying about things, taking time to reflect, like when we're having those times apart, like really reflect, what did I hear him say? What am I tripping about? What am I being stubborn about? And coming back to talk, because besides Christ, our communication is our lifeline.
Yeah. So speaking of which, you both kind of touched on being unequally yoked, or not being unequally yoked, I should say. And I'm sitting here thinking, as you're talking about the fact that your husband and you both communicate, like you're basically saying communication is key to your relationship, to keep talking, right? And it was some things that your husband said, that Jay said, that made me think about, man, this man really stands on business, as they say, on the word. You stand on the word. You are you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, combating the enemy with the word of God, just like Jesus did, right? And so that makes me wonder, like, if this man wasn't a man of God, how would this marriage have turned out? If he didn't have that word in him, what would have happened? Because, well, I'm not going to do a monologue, but yeah, that was my thought. So that's not really a question, but just an observation, that God really did his big one. I'm proud. I'm happy with you. Good job.
Be the guy.
All right. So you want to say something else?
Oh, my biggest takeaway from the pre-marriage.
Yes.
Oh, it was understanding that there are different type of problems. That you can have perpetual problems, which means not that something is wrong with your marriage, but that this may be something that does reoccur, and when it reoccur, always put a fresh set of eyes on it. Because sometimes we think something is wrong with our relationship, and really, no, this is a life thing that occurs. And so you guys just have to talk about it over again. You have to recheck in, you know. And the second thing I got was, every 5 years, you definitely got to have a big check in, because that person
Has changed. Yeah.
And not like their core of who they are, but a lot of what they do, and that type of those type of things, a lot of ways that they think, because every 5 years, believe it or not, you do change. You're an entirely different person, usually for the better.
That's
and so
good.
that really helped.
That's good. So maintain communication and recognize that there are different types of problems. And just because you keep having a recurring problem doesn't mean the relationship is over, but it actually means to involve a trusted source for counseling or some type of advisement, and do that every so often to maintain the health of the relationship. That is great advice. I have really enjoyed you all. Thank you so much. This has been episode 5 of Faith Talk, where faith and dating meet in these streets.